Now, also reports this week that the King is absolutely desperate to see his grandkids, Archie and Lilibet, which you can understand.
It began with whispers, the kind that slip through palace walls and echo into the headlines long before any official statement is ever made.
There's clearly trouble in paradise, and she's trying to cover it up, and she thinks that we are stupid enough to fall for that.
Reports this week claim that the king himself, a man burdened with centuries of tradition and the heavy silence of monarchy, is absolutely desperate to see his grandchildren, Archie and Lilibet.
Sussex's two children, 3-year-old Archie and 1-year-old Lilibet, will not have the His or Her Royal Highness status.
The image alone tugs at the heart, an aging monarch longing for the laughter of two children he hardly knows, children who carry royal blood in their veins but live oceans away, separated not by distance alone but by politics, pride, and the sharp edge of protocol. It is a tragedy wrapped in spectacle, and yet the palace, with its centuries of secrets and strategies, is playing a colder, crueler game than anyone could have imagined. Because behind the curtain of royal longing lies something far darker. Trouble in paradise has never been more obvious, and Meghan Markle seems determined to cover it up, projecting polished images of motherhood in California, while royal commentators whisper that she thinks the world is foolish enough to fall for the performance. Meghan Markle fought for freedom, yes, and Prince Harry begged for inclusion, but what has happened now is more devastating than any tabloid rumor or televised interview could have ever predicted. The children at the center of this storm, 3-year-old Archie and 1-year-old Lilibet, have been erased in silence, their futures rewritten with nothing more than a pen stroke. The Sussex children will never carry the coveted prefix of His or Her Royal Highness. And the world asks, why now, and why so brutal? After all, the royal family has weathered storms before. Divorces, scandals, abdications that threatened to shatter the monarchy. Yet what Buckingham Palace has just pulled is being described by seasoned commentators as the coldest move in modern royal history. With one quiet, unannounced signature, Archie and Lilibet were wiped clean of royal identity. No heirs, no titles. No place within the Windsor dynasty. Their futures as princes and princesses were not taken in some messy public spat, but in the clean, legal, devastating silence of protocol. It was not theatrical, it was clinical. And that, royal insiders suggest, makes it all the more devastating. The only way Prince Harry could ever dream of reinstating his children into royal life would be through Prince William himself. But William, far from sympathetic, has reportedly had enough of what he sees as his brother's reckless behavior. He will not bend, he will not forgive, and he will not, under any circumstance, grant Harry the luxury of having his children included in the royal fold. That makes the situation not only heartbreaking, but impossible. The palace has struck its blow, and this time there is no way back. What makes this twist extraordinary, what makes it truly chilling, is the timing. According to royal watchers, the palace waited. They watched. They let the Oprah interview unfold, absorbing every accusation. They endured the Netflix series, the documentaries, the endless tell-all interviews. They read every line of Harry's memoir, Spare. They watched the couple parade across talk shows and stages, dripping with the rhetoric of freedom and independence. And through it all, they remained silent. They bided their time. They let Meghan and Harry build their brand, their illusion of royal modernity. Then, when the world least expected it, they struck. Not with passion, not with anger, but with protocol, the deadliest weapon in the Windsor arsenal. This decision, commentators insist, was not spontaneous. It was rooted in the steel framework of royal law, a framework written more than a century ago by King George V in 1917. These weren't just dry, forgotten papers. Insiders call them the steel bars of the monarchy, the prison from which no royal hopeful can escape. The letters patent of 1917 define who can and cannot be a prince or princess. They outline in brutal, icy language who qualifies for a title, who is recognized in law and in history, and who is simply erased. 3 requirements, non-negotiable and absolute: legitimate royal lineage, official recognition at birth, and baptism in the Church of England. Miss one, and you are cut out. Miss all three, and you are erased completely as if you never existed in the royal chain. And this is where the contradiction collides head-on with the carefully polished Markle brand. Meghan presented herself to the world as the mother of royal heirs. She orchestrated photo shoots in California. She arranged glowing press releases, and she basked in the glossy headlines that crowned her daughter a princess. But the documents tell another story. A story the palace has been quietly building piece by piece. Archie's birth certificate was altered under mysterious palace orders, raising eyebrows and fueling conspiracy. Lilibet's birth was announced by Hollywood press release, not royal proclamation. Her baptism was recognized in California, but never by the Church of England. Every step of the way, a contradiction emerged. Every step, another brick was placed in the wall that separated the Sussex children from the Windsor dynasty. And the internet noticed. Fans online began connecting the dots like detectives solving a crime. One viral TikTok described Archie's certificate as a royal rewrite straight out of Hollywood. See, memes crowned Lilibet as the California princess with no crown. Royal commentators warned that this was not just semantics. This was permanent. This was erasure. And as reports suggest, by enforcing century-old rules now, the palace has effectively turned Harry and Meghan's children into private citizens, forever cut off from dynastic privilege. The question that now rips through headlines is devastatingly simple. Was this calculated punishment for Harry and Meghan's rebellion? Or was it simply the system protecting itself? Because, make no mistake, this is only the beginning of the fallout. The palace may have been silent, but the public was not. Within hours of the documents surfacing, social media erupted. Fans claimed they had receipts proving Meghan's narrative was collapsing under its own contradictions. Twitter lit up with side-by-side images of Archie's altered birth certificate, while Reddit threads dissected every line of the California baptism press release with forensic obsession. One user wrote, "If the Crown didn't recognize it, then in royal law, it never happened." That comment alone was shared more than 20,000 times, sparking memes that mock the very idea of California royalty. For years, Meghan's critics had accused her of playing a Hollywood princess. Now, with protocol stripping Archie and Lilibet's status, her detractors called it proof. Proof that the fairy tale was a fabrication. Proof that branding cannot beat bloodline. TikTok at its paired clips of Meghan's Oprah interview with screenshots of altered documents, captions flashing across the screen. She said, "Freedom." The Crown said, "Protocol." The internet had turned against her narrative, and even supporters, usually quick to defend the Sussexes, admitted that Buckingham Palace's silence was unsettling. And then came the media spin. Glossy American magazines like People and Vanity Fair ran glowing features labeling Lilibet a princess, complete with photographs of birthday parties in Montecito that sparkled with fairy tale charm. But British commentators pushed back hard. Reports in the Telegraph suggested palace aides viewed those articles as misleading at best, deliberately false at worst. By midweek, a split had emerged so sharp it became a scandal in itself. American outlets painted the Sussex children as heirs to a fairy tale, while UK insiders doubled down on the icy reality of protocol. The clash between nations, between fantasy and fact, became part of the story. Fans claimed the Sussexes were using American press to rewrite history. Industry observers tied the timing to Harry and Meghan's lucrative media deals, speculating that losing royal status for their children could ripple into brand value. Because here lies the cruel irony. Netflix paid millions for a series branded around royal life. Without heirs officially in the line of succession, the Sussex narrative suddenly looked less regal and more like reality TV. And reality TV, as critics reminded the public, does not carry the same billion-dollar pull as royalty. The palace's icy pen stroke had not just stripped two children of titles. It had shaken the financial foundation of Meghan and Harry's empire. And Harry was devastated. According to reports picked up by the Daily Mail, he allegedly made late-night calls to palace aides, pleading that royal blood does not vanish just because you step back. His children were Windsors, he insisted. His children carried the bloodline, and bloodline was eternal. But those claims, however emotional, were immediately countered by commentators who insisted that the decision was not about emotion. It was about protocol, not punishment. One historian told Sky News, if the rules weren't enforced here, they'd never matter again. That framing left Harry looking like a desperate son begging for exceptions, while the monarchy looked immovable, unshakable, stone. And just like that, the stakes escalated. What began as quiet paperwork had exploded into a global debate over legitimacy, legacy, and power. The question echoing across social media was hauntingly clear. If protocol could erase Archie and Lilibet, what else could it erase? Behind palace walls, whispers grew louder. Reports suggested Harry was not just frustrated. He was desperate. According to the Times, sources close to the Sussex circle claimed he made emotional midnight calls to senior aides, repeating the same words over and over again. My children are Windsor. But those pleas, if they ever reached the throne, slammed into a brick wall. The answer, fans speculated, was as cold as it gets. This isn't about feelings, it's about order. That single word, order, spread like wildfire online. Memes showed the Windsor crest crushing Harry's phone calls, captions flashing. Order above all. Meanwhile, Meghan doubled down on her brand. She reportedly told allies that California baptisms and glossy press releases carried the same weight as palace ceremonies. She seemed determined to sell the Sussex image as royal no matter what the law said. But as one royal historian reminded The Guardian, the monarchy doesn't deal in branding, it deals in lineage. That soundbite went viral, paired with clips of Meghan speaking about royal motherhood, captions mocking her narrative with the phrase, brand versus blood. The narrative was slipping, fast and hard out of Meghan's hands. And then, the final nail, the receipts. Archival documents resurfaced showing the original 1917 letters patent, still unaltered, still binding. Analysts on Sky News walked viewers line by line through the rules. Legitimate birth, official crown recognition, and baptism in the Church of England. One commentator put it bluntly, Archie and Lilibet missed all three. The law is the law. That moment hit harder than any tabloid scandal because it wasn't about gossip or speculation. It was about constitutional fact. Fans claimed you could see Harry's heartbreak in old photographs, moments where his children were styled as Prince and Princess. Titles that now seemed symbolic, not legal. The illusion had been shattered, and the comparisons began. Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, after all, are not working royals. Yet they still carry the HRH title. Even Prince Andrew, disgraced and banned from using his title in public life, still technically holds it. For Meghan and Harry, the difference was brutal. For their children, the styling was gone completely. Industry insiders began ringing alarm bells. Commentators speculated that if their children's royal identity evaporated, so too would the central pillar of the Sussex brand. Without heirs, it is just another celebrity family. One PR strategist told Variety the idea hit home. Fans debated whether Netflix and Spotify had banked too heavily on royal exclusivity, and the memes exploded, comparing the Sussexes not to royalty but to the Kardashians. Influencers, not Windsors. And so the world watched as the fairy tale fractured into scandal, and a scandal twisted into something far more permanent. Not just a family feud, but the erasure of two children's royal identity, rewritten in silence by the crown. Written in silence by the crown. It began, as these things so often do, not with a loud proclamation or a blazing public battle, but with a whisper that drifted through the cracks of Buckingham Palace. A whisper that seemed so minor at first, so insignificant, that many dismissed it as nothing more than the static of royal gossip. But in those whispers lay the seeds of a revelation that would grow into something far darker, far colder, and far more devastating than even the fiercest critics of the monarchy could have predicted. For this was not simply a story of protocol. It was not merely the inevitable clash between tradition and rebellion. This was a story of erasure, of children written out of history not with the swing of a sword, not with the fury of exile, but with the silence of ink on paper. In the quiet, chambers where decisions are made far from the public eye, a centuries-old document was dusted off and enforced with a precision so brutal that it shocked even hardened royal watchers. The 1917 letters patent, issued by King George V, long known to dictate who could and could not claim the title of prince or princess, was suddenly more than just historical parchment. It became a blade wielded with icy calculation against the children of Harry and Meghan, Archie and Lilibet. It was as if the monarchy had taken up a scalpel, cut them out of the lineage, and held the silence like a weapon. That shift alone marked a cultural downgrading so sharp it rattled even those who had stood firmly on the side of tradition. Because for all the pomp and ceremony, for all the rituals of continuity, there was always an unspoken understanding that children, especially children born into this most peculiar institution, were spared the coldest edges of the crown. Yet here, the crown showed no hesitation, no mercy. And as the news filtered through, it was not simply seen as protocol, it was seen as strategy. Reports began to emerge suggesting that Buckingham Palace had delayed the enforcement of the 1917 patent, intentionally holding back the axe, waiting for precisely the right moment to strike. They had watched Harry and Meghan break away, watched their rebellion ignite the global stage, watched as their every public appearance leaned heavily on the idea of lineage, of heirs, of a new kind of royal family standing at the intersection of Hollywood glamour and regal destiny. And then, when that narrative was firmly established, when the Sussex brand was tied irrevocably to the image of their children as heirs, the Crown acted. They didn't fight the narrative. They didn't shout it down. They didn't chase Harry and Meghan across talk shows or Netflix documentaries. They simply erased their ammunition. One viral comment on Reddit captured it with chilling simplicity. The firm didn't fight them. It just erased them. That observation reframed the entire saga. This was no longer about a feud between a son and his family, nor even a battle between an actress-turned-duchess and the institution she could never quite master. This was a long game, meticulously calculated and devastatingly effective. In a single stroke of bureaucratic precision, the monarchy didn't merely silence Meghan and Harry. It rewrote their children out of history. And once the idea settled into public consciousness, the question grew louder and darker. How would the couple respond? How would Hollywood, which had invested fortunes in the fairy tale of royal heirs, handle the collapse of that fantasy? By the fourth day, the scandal had burst beyond the confines of gossip columns. It was everywhere. It was being dissected on British morning talk shows and ripped apart on American late-night comedy. Jimmy Kimmel quipped that Archie was now the prince of paperwork errors. TikTok edits mocked Meghan's tearful confessions, from her Oprah interview, reframing the saga as a courtroom sketch where the cold hand of protocol faced off against the desperate cry for freedom. Even Meghan's supporters found the optics brutal. On Twitter, one viral post read, "If even the paperwork erases them, how can Meghan keep selling this fairy tale?" It racked up 60,000 likes in a single night, cementing the view that this was bigger than family drama. It was institutional. And institutions, once stirred, do not act with compassion. They act with permanence. Suddenly, the chatter spread beyond royal circles into boardrooms and studios. Commentators speculated that Netflix executives were pacing their offices in panic. Entire story arcs had been constructed around the Sussex children. Animated spin-offs, documentaries, merchandise lines. What happened when those heirs were no longer recognized as heirs at all? Industry insiders whispered to Variety that if the Crown withheld recognition, deals could collapse in a legal gray zone. One insider warned darkly. Disney once lost millions over a licensing misstep. If the monarchy pulls recognition, these contracts are built on sand. What had begun as protocol now rippled outward into Hollywood's fragile empire of image and illusion. The cultural consequences were no softer. Historians began to unfurl the comparisons at lightning speed. Diana, stripped of Her Royal Highness after her divorce, her face still radiant yet officially diminished. Edward VIII, erased after his abdication, his name and image recast in the history books as a shameful detour. Even Princess Margaret, whose love was forbidden, her life reshaped by the cold mechanics of duty. Yet commentators stressed that this was something else entirely. This wasn't punishment. This wasn't exile. This wasn't even scandal. It was something colder, a razor slicing through the family tree, leaving nothing but absence. One historian on BBC Newsnight delivered a line that went viral overnight. This isn't exile. This isn't disgrace. This is erasure. The word itself, eraser, crystallized the drama in a way no speech could. Erasure was colder than scandal. Erasure was colder than exile. Erasure meant invisibility. For Harry, caught in the middle, the consequences were unbearable. Reports suggested his private pleas had been dismissed without ceremony, leaving him powerless, stripped not only of leverage but of dignity. One analyst put it in words that haunted the public imagination. It's like watching a son beg a father who has already made up his mind. That image spread online, grafted onto clips of young Harry following Diana's coffin through London, his head bowed, his face frozen in grief. History repeats, fans wrote, and the phrase went viral, a cruel echo of the past projected onto the present. Meanwhile, Meghan's branding nightmare deepened by the hour. Her attempts to present glossy magazine spreads and California baptisms as legitimate royal moments looked increasingly fragile in the face of cold, black and white legal text. TikTok edits paired her smiling images with stark readings of the 1917 letters patent. One viral video cut between Meghan's famous line, "I wanted freedom," and a historian's icy retort, "Freedom doesn't erase lineage." Millions of views later, the verdict was sealed. The narrative Meghan had built was cracking, collapsing under the weight of a centuries-old document that cared nothing for Hollywood gloss. The memes arrived with merciless speed. Lilibet became the Princess of Malibu. Archie, the Duke of Nowhere. Entire Facebook groups sprang up debating whether Meghan could sustain her Hollywood career without being seen as the mother of heirs. Advertisers grew nervous. One executive reportedly told the Financial Times, "Royalty sells. Rebellion without royalty doesn't." That single line may have carried the highest stakes of all, because beneath the gossip, beneath the laughter, beneath the endless social media jokes, the core of the matter had become brutally clear. This was about money, influence, and global image. The crown had played its hand with devastating calculation, and the tremors were being felt across continents. By now, it was no longer whispers. It was a cultural earthquake. The monarchy's silence had not been weakness. It had been strategy. And when they struck, they didn't just wound Meghan and Harry. They shook Hollywood, rattled investors, and destabilized the very idea of royal rebellion as a brand. And then came the silence. No press release. No carefully worded leak to the press. No sympathetic insider feeding the tabloids. Just documents, cold and impersonal. The absence of words became the loudest speech of all. "Once it's written, it's forever," one commentator told Sky News. Online, fans described it as the monarchy's nuclear option. No need for statements. No need for confrontation. Just protocol. And that framing echoed like a drumbeat across social media. Once erased, always erased. For Meghan, the fallout was immediate. Without royal heirs, her carefully constructed narrative as the protective mother of modern royals crumbled into dust. PR experts told Variety that brand deals built around her royal status would face a credibility crisis so severe that some projects might never recover. Even her staunchest media allies struggled to spin the situation. People magazine ran a cover hailing Lilibet as a princess. Within hours, fans posted side-by-side screenshots of the letter's patent, proving otherwise. Memes mocked the headline as Princess of Photoshop. The credibility gap widened into a chasm. For Harry, the pain was deeper, more personal, almost unbearable. Reports suggested he was shattered. seeing in this act not just a rejection of his children, but a symbolic rejection of himself. Analysts drew direct parallels to his mother. First, they had stripped Diana of her title. Now, they stripped his children of theirs. First, they erased his mother. Now, they erase his children, one fan wrote on Reddit. Thousands of upvotes later, the line had spread like wildfire across TikTok, paired with funeral footage, turning what had been framed as protocol into a generational tragedy. The ripple effects across the entertainment industry deepened the wound. Commentators speculated that streaming executives would now quietly reconsider every Sussex-related project. Netflix, once eager to market the children as modern heirs in animated and documentary form, now faced a storytelling dilemma. Without titles, without recognition, without lineage, what remained? They were celebrities, yes. Famous, yes. But unique, no longer. One analyst put it with brutal clarity. The Crown just devalued their brand by billions, and it didn't cost them a penny. The monarchy, in that framing, was no longer a passive relic but the ultimate power player in global image-making. Historians contextualized it within a century of royal survival tactics: abdications, divorces, scandals, betrayals. Each time, the Crown cut ties, amputated limbs, and carried on, stronger than before. But this strike was different. It wasn't exile. It wasn't punishment. It was erasure. Rebellion can be spun into drama, one professor explained on BBC Radio. But irrelevance is fatal. Fans seized on the phrase, plastering it across memes. Better exiled than erased. And so the question sharpened like a knife. Where does this leave Harry and Meghan? Reports suggested they were cornered, stripped of titles for their children, denied exceptions, branded as outsiders by the system they once thought they could reform. Their supporters clung desperately to the narrative of freedom. Their critics pointed out the brutal truth. The monarchy had proven the oldest law of all. Protocol always wins. And here lay the bitterest irony. Meghan had once insisted that titles did not matter. Harry had once promised that love was enough. But now, in the cold light of 2025, the erasure of their children revealed the monarchy's deadliest weapon was not scandal, nor exile, nor disgrace. It was silence. Silence backed by paper. Silence that rewrote history itself. If a century-old document could erase children in a single stroke, what might the Crown erase next? Could it one day extend that silence, that cold bureaucratic blade, toward Meghan and Harry themselves? Because history had shown, again and again, that when the monarchy feels threatened, it does not hesitate. It cuts, and once it cuts, the wound never heals. And so, as the dust settled over Buckingham Palace, the silence remained. A silence heavier than any scandal, more final than any exile, more devastating than any speech. It was the silence of erasure, and it left the world asking one final haunting question. If the Crown can erase children, what happens when it turns its gaze upon their parents? Stay tuned, because this story is not over, not even close. The next chapter is already being written, and when it breaks, you'll want to be here to witness it. You'll want to be here to witness it. This is Crown and Controversy, unraveling the royals, one scandal at a time. Don't forget to subscribe.